Hello there. Once again, I am Paul Glumaz, and this is being brought to you by General Welfare Presents. And today is the 27th of July, and we are approximately a little bit less, probably a day or two less, than 100 days before the November 4th, 2020 election. So this topic today is going to be starting about Pompeo organizing for the rapture before the elections in the middle of an insurrection. Pompeo organizing for the rapture in the middle of an insurrection in the election. Okay, so what's happening is that Mike Pompeo has gone on a rampage to try to trigger a war with China, and actions are being taken by the U.S. Congress and the State Department, especially by Pompeo, or what Donald Trump once called the Deep State Department. And this is something that is causing incredible crisis right now in the world. Okay. Give you a flavor of it. Pompeo's going around saying things like, and if we don't act now, ultimately, our children's children will maybe at the mercy of the Chinese Communist Party. General Secretary Xi is not destined to tyrannize inside and outside of China forever unless we allow it. Okay. So there is a full mobilization of the empire, which includes Pompeo, the Deep State Department, the military-industrial complex, the U.S. media, the U.S. Congress, the British intelligence, and the same element, the same apparatus that created Russiagate is now on a full mobilization to go into a full confrontation with China. Literally, war. In the last few days, the Houston consulate was forced to close, allegedly around a spying situation. And the Chinese responded by closing the Chengdu embassy. Now, at the same time, Pompeo has been meeting with the same intelligence services, John Soros, Richard Dearlove. These are retired heads of MI6, who are the same architects of Christopher Steele, the same architects of the Ukrainian coup, the same architects of the entire Russia hoax. So this is what's going on. We have, as we go into the last 100 days before the election, the British Empire has no assurance that they can defeat Trump. Keep in mind that after Trump was elected, the House of Lords report on British foreign policy said that the greatest threat to British foreign policy is the revival of national tendencies that will disrupt the empire and disrupt the rules-based order. Okay? And that the rules-based order and the special relationship between the United Kingdom and the U.S., which is at the cornerstone of the British Empire, could survive one term of Trump because so many networks are enmeshed and connected and what have you, such that there is almost a seamless relationship between the institutions of British intelligence, of the British bureaucracy, and the U.S. intelligence and the U.S. bureaucracy. It's a seamless thing. There's one and the same at this point. There is no distinction. However, the elected governments of the United States under Donald Trump and the elected government of Boris Johnson at this moment are not in sync with that seamless relationship of the rules-based order. That's the integration of the intelligence and bureaucratic structures of the empire, which include the U.S. as well as the United Kingdom, as well as the Commonwealth countries and everything else, as well as the European Union bureaucracy and so on and so forth, as well as the City of London financial system and Wall Street and the drug trade and the military-industrial complex and the mercenary armies, which are called terrorists, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's all one integrated system, which, however, has been, to some degree, found disfavor in the various populations of the United Kingdom and the United States and other European countries. So you have governments that have emerged, elected governments that have emerged, which are in opposition, and which, as a result of being in opposition, there is an insurrection against those governments. And right now, Boris Johnson is being massively attacked for his Huawei, the deal with the Chinese, to try to break Britain from the Chinese, for Boris Johnson from the Chinese phone company. But that's what's going on now. So now this has gotten so serious. You know, literally, the Secretary of State of the United States' statements are calling for war with China. Okay? Calling for war with China. And the Chinese generally don't react. They're just, it's just not in their culture to go back and forth. And they're very, very tolerant. They usually try to be, they try to be tolerant, and at least in the discourse. And so now what China has begun to say in their media, that Pompeo is organizing for the rapture, that he's one of these psychotic people that believe in the rapture, that believe in, and they quoted some statement that I don't have right now, but they quoted some statement where he's talking about, having a war, having a nuclear war, to bring on the rapture. So we have a situation where you have the rapture issue. Now, there is a big support for Pompeo in the Zionist crowd and in the British crowd, and also in the evangelical crowd to a large degree, which to some degree was created by British intelligence over the last 150 years. But that's another issue. So this is where Trump is at. He's 100 days from the election. He can't fire Pompeo right now. It would be too destabilizing to his base, to parts of his base. For electoral purposes, he's adopted the line that came out of, again, the same British intelligence, Sewers and Dearlove, through the Jackson Society, claiming that China deliberately unleashed the virus on the world. The Wuhan virus is now the China virus. And Trump has adopted that to some degree, and that has made the situation with China much worse. So we are at a point And then India is being massively recruited into this thing. And it looks like India may join in the military exercises that are what are called the four powers, U.S., Japan, India, and Australia, to try to box in China. Okay, this is incredible. This is incredible. Now, so last Thursday, the Schiller Institute and the Executive Intelligence Review held a press conference, an international press conference with Bill Binney, Kurt Wiebe, who was an associate of Bill Binney. Now, Bill Binney is the technical director, former technical director of the NSA. And Kurt Wiebe is an associate. And in that press conference was also Barbara Boyd. Now, Bill Binney was able to develop in the press conference the entire fraud of the Russia hack, which he had prepared for evidence in the Roger Stone case, which was not allowed by the court. Because if the WikiLeaks emails of the DNC and Podesta are not a hack, then there is no case. But more importantly, there is no Russia hack. And it's also the case that this would be known to the entire intelligence community, they would know this. So that they have perpetrated a fraud on the nation in a very profound sort of way. Now, this press conference was streamlined in many other websites: Consortium News, Gateway Pundit, one of the key writers for the Duran, Hanich, Craig Murray, Assange's mother. And when Gateway Pundit tried to started streaming it, the website was temporarily shut down by an attack. But hundreds of thousands of people probably saw this, and this was very important. This was a very important breakout on the fact that if there is no Russia hack, the whole thing is a fraud. Now, it also happens that Trump recommended that Trump got Pompeo when he was CIA director to sit down with Binney, and Binney went through all of this with Trump. When Pompeo was CIA director, not a word that we know of was said to Trump by Pompeo. So Pompeo knows the whole thing is a fraud, and he has maintained the Russia hack thing all along. So this is key to the situation. We have to break that situation. We have to break it now before this thing gets further out of control. Now, we are witnessing a gradual escalation every weekend in major cities: Portland, Seattle, Chicago, other cities, Austin, many cities, of peaceful demonstrations during the day and extremely violent demonstrations at night, and in New York City and so forth. And what's happening is policemen are now being seriously injured. I think in one of these major cities, I don't know which one it was, maybe it was Seattle, 50 police officers were injured. And you have to understand this. Individuals who are pro-Trump and are demonstrably pro-Trump are being shot and killed. Okay, this is happening in some of the areas. An African American who has a store, front with Trump signs and is pro-Trump. He was murdered in a drive-by shooting, and I think it might have been in a Midwest state. We're starting to get this escalation. Now, this thing has been planned for a long time, and it was planned by the Obama administration. Now, you have to understand that the founder of the Weatherman, one of the key founders, Phil Ayers, who's still married to the same Bernadette, whatever her name is, who went on to become a education specialist and teacher. He is reputed to have been the major mentor to the development of Obama and may have ghostwritten Obama's popular story, novel, is popular, one of his popular biographies. And what has been promoted through these networks from the colleges into the educational system is something called critical theory. And the idea is that words have power, and you cannot be anything other than the sum of your identities, and you cannot be anything outside of that. In other words, if you're African American, you can't be white, and if you're white, you can't be African American, and if you're a woman, you can't be a man. You can't. In other words, it's this whole idea you can't know the other, and that words themselves are power, and that if you say something that is not politically correct or acceptable to say, you are causing injury to people. In other words, in the state of Washington, the Democrats have a piece of legislation that would make it a criminal offense for people to call somebody a bad name if they didn't like their sexual preference. So if I call you anything that is not approved, I could be in trouble with my job. Or if it's really bad, I could go to prison. Or my kids could rat on me. And and the same thing could happen. And students can rat on each other. Employees rat on each other. I have a friend who lost his job because of this. And this is and so people who want to climb the social ladder can really run operations against their fellow employees. This is really, really, really nasty situation. Also, this is an increasing police state. Now, during the entire Obama administration, this has been prepared behind the scenes. It's been prepared at the university level, at the education level, at the corporate level, at the government level. It's been going on for a while. It hasn't, actually longer than that. It's been going on for 20 years. But now it's at the point where it runs the companies, it runs the bureaucracies in many places. And it's this which is running the whole situation where they're allowing in these cities this mayhem, these riots. And if a federal building is attacked and Trump wants to defend the federal building, we want to defend the federal building, Nancy Pelosi is calling the federal agents Nazi stormtroopers. That's how bad it's gotten. Okay? That's how bad it's gotten. In other words, the politically correct thing is to say that these violent demonstrators that are injuring police officers, I agree with you. If they call them, okay, if they call them anything, you're bad. Yep. And this has been coming in a long time, and this has all been developed during the period of the last 3 years, especially by Obama and the resist movement. And this is what's been going on. So if Trump comes down really hard on it at some point, and then there's some demonstrators who are killed in the process, then they will do the same thing as they did in Ukraine. There'll be this whole massive up, everything will be blown. They'll blow everything up. And they'll try to ignite something. Now, this is also having an opposite effect in the population. They're watching this, and they're starting to get a sense that this needs to be dealt with. And more importantly, they're starting to consider why this is happening to them, why this is happening to our cities. What is it that's been going on all this time that has created the situation where this could happen? So, but more importantly, they want to reach a stage where people are living in fear. That if they show any visible signs that is politically incorrect, they can be physically attacked. And now we're getting into the brown shirts. Now we're getting into destroying all these stores. But there's another component of this, which is not being discussed. And this is very, very important. These people are coming out every night, the peaceful demonstrators, and then the violence. In New York City, this is huge. It's also designed to spread the coronavirus. That's also part of it. It's to spread the virus and then blame it on Trump on top of it. Create an unmanageable situation with the virus. Okay? To keep the lockdown. And profoundly damage the small businessmen, the unemployed. Now, all the moratoriums on payments, on foreclosures, all of that's coming to an end. There's going to be millions and millions of Americans stuck with nothing very soon. What are they going to do? Okay, so you get the idea that this is planned. This is deliberate. This is what we're facing right now. Okay, now the elections are coming, and there's no guarantee that Trump is going to win, but there's also no guarantee that he's going to lose. Okay, so we're not Nazi Germany. We have a population that's armed. We have a population better than being armed. We have a population that it's not going to just stay scared, just because they're scared, they're going to give in. Okay? So it's for this reason that the drive for war is occurring now, not waiting until after Trump loses, because the empire has no guarantee that Trump is going to lose. So they're moving now to break the relationships between China and the U.S. They're moving now to get this war underway. But also because Trump is talking to Putin and is talking about this conference of the P5, the Permanent Five of the United Nations. And that's what they want to stop, because if that conference occurs, then you have a way of pulling nations together to deal with all this. So I'm going to stop there and see you next week.